All right, guys, we're back. This time we're going to talk about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This is the 2022 film, the 30th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Once again, this is directed by Ryan Coogler and written by Ryan Coogler, also alongside Joe Robert Cole, who helped him write the first one as well. This is obviously the sequel to the 2018 Black Panther. This time starring Letitia Wright, Lupita Nyong'o, Danai Gurira, Winston Duke, Dominique Thorne, Florence Kasumba, Michaela Cole, Tenoch Huerta, Martin Freeman, and Angela Bassett. A lot of people in this movie, guys. So this is a spoiler-free review. We will have a spoiler review up in a couple of days as well. So if you haven't seen the movie and you just want to hear the review, this is the one for you. All right. Look, this picks up a number of years after the first one, obviously, with the unfortunate death of Chadwick Boseman's character who played T'Challa in the first movie, him passing away. And then we kind of get the story moving. So what were your overall thoughts on this?
My overall thoughts are I really enjoyed this movie, but it is not without its issues. I think performances are stellar, but I think some of the writing and storytelling is a little suspect. This movie has the very unfortunate situation of one being a sequel to a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
People's expectations are going to be in the stratosphere. It also has the unfortunate thing where it chooses to pay homage to a real life actor, someone who was beloved by everyone in this movie. There's a lot going on in this movie, and it's spinning a lot of plates, and some of those plates fall. But the good stuff outweighs the bad stuff for me. If you got to give it a number, it's like a 3.9 out of 5. Like I really enjoyed it. This is a long movie, but this is one of those rare long movies that's paced so well you do not feel the 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Right.
In my opinion. So yeah, it's a great movie. I had a real good time. I had a lot of emotions going through it, but it's not without its faults, and I'll talk about those as well as the stuff that I did like after I hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So look, I thought you mentioned the performances. I thought the performances were pretty phenomenal. People brought their A game, and you can tell that there is a lot of emotional heft to those performances, even more so than the first one, because of what happened with Chadwick Boseman. Like it feels like, yeah, there are two rather major homages to him, right? You know, in film, which I think are placed very well. And so you can tell, everybody is like, I got to bring my A game. If we're dedicating this movie to his life and to him, not only as a character inside the MCU, but as an actor outside of the MCU, as a real person, which I think is incredibly important. I gotta bring it all, and they do. Like Angela Bassett, especially Letitia Wright. Like there is some really heartfelt moments where you're just like, wow, okay, are you talking about the Black Panther, or are you talking about Chadwick Boseman? Because it's almost impossible to tell, right? Because it's clear he meant a lot to them. And you also see Ryan Coogler's feeling of losing this guy on the screen too, right? He really, really does quite well. Yeah, look, I mean, your point about it has a lot of plates spinning. I agree. There is a lot going on in this movie. And I feel like this movie could have benefited, you and I talked about this offline, it could have almost benefited, the entire Namor story could have benefited. It could have been its own movie. Just because it is so, these movies, these Black Panther movies do such a profound job. And I think that this is a Ryan Coogler thing very specifically, is he is a character-driven guy. Like, he just is. If you look at any of his stuff outside of Black Panther, it is all heavy character-based, or character-focused, right? And I know people go, well, all movies are like that. No, they're not. Like, Christopher Nolan is not a big character guy, right? Like, he makes great movies, but characters are not where he, like, really digs in, except for, like, Batman.
I mean, some of them aren't even named.
Right. Like, right. His last movies is like,
doesn't have a name.
Right. Because it's not important, right? The story is important. And then there's nothing wrong with that. That's not one person's right, one person's wrong. It's just different types of storytelling. And so, but Coogler very specifically is a character guy, right? He digs in so deep. And this is no exception to that. So everybody has deep character moments for the most part. But it makes for a movie that is incredibly crowded. You're just like, wow, okay, that's going on, and that's going on, and that's going. Like, it's just a lot. That being said, I love the movie. I thought it was great. I think it goes in deeper places for obvious reasons that I mentioned than the first movie did, because it didn't. That movie didn't need to do that, right? It feels good to be back in this world. It's one of my favorite sides of the MCU. It's gorgeous. I mean, it really makes the first movie, you're like, wow, Black Panther's a really beautiful movie. You ain't seen nothing yet until you see this one. It's impressive. And it's also, the underwater scenes are incredibly impressive. But yeah, overall, I thought it was really, really great. I think it's a great sequel to the original. But if I had to give, my biggest criticism is it's crowded. There's just a lot going on. It's a lot. And there are plates that fall. There are some characters I'm like, this person didn't need to be in the movie. Like, they just didn't need to be there.
I mean, there are characters in this movie that you could lift the entire screen time of those characters and the movie wouldn't miss a beat.
No, no. I can think of a rather prominent actor that I thought was going to be major, that I was like, is this person going to be there in something else? Like, is that going to be a larger character later on? Because, like, it's just overcrowded.
There's a newer character that, it's great to see that character, but that character is just a MacGuffin. That character could literally be anybody.
Yeah.
But Namor's motivation is sound. His plan is not, to me. And
I agree. Because it has more to it has more to do with an overarching narrative,
right?
Than it does. Yeah, like does it play in this?
Like, if you think about it, it just does not make sense in the moment to moment that you're watching it.
I agree with that.
But going back to the character thing, you're so captivated by the performance that Tenoch Huerta is doing.
It's awesome.
That
Jesus.
You don't think about it in the moment until you stop and think about it.
Right.
I think this movie, are they still doing a Wakanda
series
Disney Plus show?
They are. They haven't decided like when that's going to happen, because he was so concentrated on this.
So I feel like this story could easily be adapted to a long form series.
Agreed.
To flesh out more of the, because like, not only are we mourning Chadwick Boseman, we are developing Shuri, who was just a goofball in the first movie.
Yeah, not anymore.
She's a serious character now. Yeah. We are developing all of the other side characters. We're also introducing and have to develop a whole new world.
Yeah.
That lives underwater. And I don't know if that got the just due that I think it deserves. We also have what the rest of the other side of the MCU, right? The outside of Wakanda and right. It's not Atlantis. I can't remember what the name is.
Telecom.
But right, we also have all that other stuff outside of it. Like there's and I feel like this would be served better as a series, but which is why this movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes, because there's a lot going on. Right. But for what is here, I do enjoy what is here, and yeah, and the mid credits scene is very, very interesting.
We're going to talk about that very much in depth in the spoiler review, because there is so much there. It's like it is unbelievable how well they captured the moment for that and fucking nailed it. Like they did. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what people say, but it is a mid-credit scene that is incredibly smart. It is incredible.
I mean, it has ramifications for what the future of this franchise can be. And
yes.
And we'll dig into it. Look, performances are this is Letitia Wright's movie. This is Letitia Wright's movie to carry on her back.
And she does.
And she does, but she does not do it alone. Angela Bassett, of course, is brilliant.
Yeah.
Angela Bassett is phenomenal in this movie. Letitia Wright, I haven't.
And by the way, I think Angela Bassett has the single most raw emotional scene in the movie.
Yeah. It's a scene that like I feel like not many people can pull off.
And look, you're gonna feel bad. Like in that scene, you're gonna feel bad because you're like, but hold up. But you got a point though. Like you know what I mean? Like it's such a raw scene because you feel for both characters in that scene, and you're like, nobody's wrong, but Angela Bassett is crushing this scene, and she delivers the shit out of that scene. Holy shit, she does.
Yeah. Letitia Wright is doing a phenomenal job of just going through a range of emotions. She's going through the stages of grief in this movie. And it's wonderful to see. It's cathartic to see, especially if you are a fan of Chadwick Boseman, the person.
Yes.
Danai Gurira is she's great.
She has an interesting arc. She has an interesting arc in this.
She does.
They gave her, besides being a badass, they gave her something like really emotional to deal with, which I thought was great.
Winston Duke's character, he is still comic relief, but even he has grown.
Real light though. Like this movie is real light on comedy, dude. Like
like,
real light. It's amazing.
If you think phase 4 was all like goofiness, like none of that stuff is nah.
I can think of like Namor has one quip, and it's like, ha, back to this fucking real shit. Like there is not a lot. Because like the movie, calls for you to be like, you need to be in this shit. Like we're not going to be like, ain't gonna be no goats and all that. No, you are in this very serious moment. And it's impressive.
I like to give this analogy. If the first Black Panther was a family reunion, this movie is like a family funeral.
Yeah.
You know,
a black funeral.
A black funeral. You go to this funeral. You didn't want to be here, but because you're here, you see your family and you appreciate them more, and you know, grief brings people together. That's the only positive thing about it, and that's what this movie felt like for quite a bit of it.
Well,
action.
Well, before you get to the action part, like to your point. You know, this may only be a thing like this is for black people only. But like your funeral analogy, I think is very good because like at black funerals, like yes, the grief brings people together, and that's like true for like all funerals. Yeah. But very specifically, it's very much a celebration of that person's life, and it is like you feel sad in the beginning because that's like they focus on that, and it's like fuck, like oh my god, but the way they transition to like the larger narrative of the story, I think is very smart. But then they kind of bring you back in the end of like, hey man, don't forget like what happened, who we lost and everything else. And you go like, I'm kind of feeling a little bit like even talking about it. It's so well done. It's so incredibly well done to like bookend the movies with that kind of emotional moment, but at the end, it is such a perfect celebration of who he was. And you just go, yeah, like it was fucking sad, and it is still sad, but like there he is. Like, you know, you get to, you know, show a couple scenes of him and stuff like that. And it works. It works incredibly well, man. Jesus.
And you know what really works? You know what the icing on the cake is? The mid-credit sequence is hopeful.
It is.
And it you go through this emotion in the beginning. You are with Shuri on her stages of grief. You bookend it with you know, the last stage of grief. And then there's this hopeful thing at the end of it. And it's beautiful. And
because yeah. Well, I mean, like you quite literally in the movie, right? Here are the 5 stages of grief. And you go through, and like you and I have seen the movie, other people probably haven't at this point, right? Denial, because you're just like quite literally, that's the first part of the movie. You're like, no, but what the fuck? Like no, come on, man. Anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And that's what the movie is. And there is something very special and very different of having a sequel take you through those stages that like as an audience member to go through, but the director in the writing is taking you through those stages because that's what they went through when they lost him. Right? Like we lost him like as a fucking actor, right? Like that's not the same as working next to that guy for years.
They were friends with that guy. Like right, they were friends with that guy. Like that's the one thing that I don't understand from the recast, you know, T'Challa brigade, right? Like initially when this happened, I was for recasting the role because no one person owns one role. Right. But I didn't get butthurt about it when the people who worked with this man said, hey, we want to honor him in a way that will help us get through it.
Right.
And I understand that because that is bigger than some movie.
Yeah.
And
that's absolutely right.
So and they pulled it off and it was beautiful. And they pulled it off they pulled that part off. The movie itself, like I said, has some issues, but I enjoyed it, man. I really did. I really enjoyed it.
It is, for me, I think it's a top tier MCU movie. I do. Not just for this phase. I think overall. It is one of the best looking movies they've ever done, if not the best, honestly. Because Coogler is just his vision and the cinematographer he works with, they just have an aesthetic that just looks different. I think it's a top tier movie. I really do. I think it's phenomenal. Again, my biggest issue with it is there is so much going on. And like you said, you can just pick whole characters. It's like, you don't need to be there. Save that for the TV show. Like just you know, save it for the third movie. Like you just don't need it. And it's just because Coogler was tasked with doing something that he wasn't originally planning, which is now you need to pivot whatever that original story was to handling the death of your friend in real life and on screen, and then giving your chance for your cast to do the same, and then also tell a compelling, fun story with new characters and all. Like that's a lot. It's a fuck ton of shit to do. It's a lot to do. So, but to his credit, it's a lot of plate spinning. He drops a few, but not a lot. Like not a lot. Not where you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, no. It's just that like certain parts like, I didn't need this. I didn't need this. I didn't need that. Like, I don't feel like there's anything in the story that hurt the story as much as it's just like, this just didn't need to be there. Like, I didn't need to concentrate on any of that. Right.
Well, I think Nemo's plan is the big thing that I think needed to be rethought.
I would agree with that. And it's only because, like you said, in the movie, it doesn't like, but why though? Like that doesn't make any sense. But like, when you look at what the narrative that they were building, when you look at the narrative aspect of it, of just like what these characters are going through and like like then it makes sense. You're like, okay, I see why they did that, but like you could have gone about it a different way. Like his plan could have been a bit different, and then still filled that same void. So, yeah, overall, highly recommend. Highly recommend. I loved it. So, we'll be back with our spoiler review next week, and then we're gonna we're gonna talk in depth about a lot of shit. It should be fun. All right, that's it for us, guys. We will see you guys next time.
See ya.